And now an interview between Michelangelo and Da Vinci.
Oh, look, it's time for a mock debate.
What shall we debate?
I don't know. Whatever do you want to debate?
You're so laid back and easy. You know, have you ever pulled one over on the cardinal?
I pulled over a blue jay once for soliciting.
Well, I pulled one over on the cardinal. Let me tell you about this.
I feel so bad for that bird.
It wasn't the bird. It was the cardinal. Your hat looks marvelous. I pulled one over on the cardinal, and this is how I rose to prominence, because I was nobody before that. You see, early in my career, me, Michelangelo, I carved a Cupid, which has been lost. Nobody knows where it is now. But I promise, I really did do this. I carved a Cupid in the style of the ancient Greeks, and upon seeing this marvelous sculpture of Cupid that I carved, my patron at the time, Lorenzo di Pierfrancesco de Medici, he said, why don't we send this to the cardinal and pretend that it's old? And they conspired, and he says, if we bury it, it will look older. So they buried the sculpture that I made, and then we sent it to the cardinal. And Cardinal Raphael Riaro, he was so surprised. He's like, this is magnificent. And then later on, he did learn that he had been conned, and at that point, instead of getting angry with me, he was so impressed by my beautiful sculpting talent that he invited me to come meet with him, and we went to Rome. And there, in the Eternal City, is where I stayed for the next several years, eventually winning a commission to carve the Pieta.
Right, but did you ever write mirrored cursive in your notebooks?
I was not that fantastic. No. What have you done that is so spectacular?
Oh.
Have you ever conned anybody?
No, but I have tried to make a great flying machine. I tried to fly.
Tell me about it.
Well, I created this machine, and it had feathered cloth wings, and it was a machine, and then it broke. I tried. I made sketches. It never worked out.
Did you fall?
Yeah.
Did it hurt?
I don't know.
Well, let me tell you about something that hurt to me. You want to know my nose looks like this?
Why?
Because it was broken when I was a teenager. And it was, my nose looks so funny because it never healed right. You see, I was studying in the home of Lorenzo de Medici, and one of the important art patrons in all of Europe. So because I had such a steady hand with the art and the chisel, somebody was jealous of me. And so his name was Pietro Torrigiano, and he got so mad that he punched me in the nose. And in fact, he even said that he bragged that this mark of mine he will carry with him to the grave. And as you can see, my nose looks like this because I got punched in the face as a teenager.
That must have really hurt.
It did, but I'm still a better sculptor than he was, and everybody knows my name. Nobody's ever heard of him. They don't even know how to pronounce his name.
I mean, I've heard of him. No side comment. Okay. Well, have you ever tried to, or started writing and scripting about like a tank, a war machine, or a metal car like that had armor on it?
I wasn't that advanced.
No, you didn't make a great armored car. They
No.
said I did it. I made sketches. I never actually did it. I was way before my time.
Well, you must have been a genius.
Yeah, totally.
But
It was my dyslexia that helped that. Yeah,
It probably
and
was.
my left-handedness.
Well, do you know what I did?
What did you do?
I took a piece of marble that nobody wanted. They said, this is trash. It's pockmarked, it's yucky, it's gross, don't touch this. And I took this piece of marble, and you know what I made from that?
Oh, do tell.
David. I made David, also known as the Giant. This massive slab, it had been quarried nearly 40 years earlier, which is kind of a long time for sculptures, so nobody wanted it. And it was considered abandoned, and I chiseled it so carefully, and I made David. And David...
Couldn't you pick a better name?
Well, David and the Goliath, he was a boy, but I made him huge so that he looked like Goliath. Better, if you ask me. I mean, he was quite manly.
Very manly.
Well,
But you could have done it differently like Matthew. But no, you chose with David.
Well, we all like the male anatomy. I understand you draw. What do you draw?
Let's just say you won this debate and we're moving on.
You sketch. What was it? What is this thing called with a man in the circle with his arms? What is this called that you've sketched? I created the perfect man. Me, Michelangelo, I created David. The perfect proportions of a man. Very handsome, if you ask me. And he was standing in the contrapostal stance.
No way. I drew the
perfect.
My God! I drew the Vitruvian man. He was absolutely perfect. He was the real perfect man. He had all the right poses and everything. He was the right description of a man, drawing of a man. Totally was.
Well, have you ever drawn the perfect woman?
Mona Lisa, yes.
You're right, everybody does say that she is the perfect woman. But what is she really smiling about?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe she's fantasizing about cats.
Cats. Of course she was.
It's definitely cats.
Did you ever paint yourself?
Yes.
But have you ever painted Jesus?
Yes, and he did sit still for me. I painted the Last Supper. There are a bunch of moderations in the future that people have done on it. Did you do something like that?
Well, of course, I painted the Last Judgment. It's in the Sistine Chapel, of course. Where, my ceiling is that I'm so known
You must
for.
have terrible back pain.
I do. It's really more the neck. It's right here. Oh,
Yeah.
it's just every
I
day.
advise you a chiropractor.
Yeah, I'll have to find out what that is someday. So anyways, this painting, The Last Judgment, it's on the altar wall of the church, But I did it 25 years after I did the Sistine Chapel ceiling. Isn't that interesting?
I really feel bad for your back pain.
Well, it's called one of my most complex pieces, but I mean, it took me a long time, it got better with age, to do it. And in this work, this Last Judgment, it is God's final judgment of mankind and inequality. And you know why it's very controversial?
Why?
Because there's nudity in it, of course.
Do tell.
Yes, well, the Council of Trent, they condemned the fresco in
So they allow these in the church?
Well, no, they didn't like it because it had nudity. So they condemned the fresco in 1564, and they ordered someone else to come up and cover up some parts that they considered to be obscene.
Oh, goodness. And all that hard work for nothing.
What can you say? Not everybody appreciates the male form.
Yeah, nobody appreciates good.
But I hear that you're so famous that later artists have riffed on you. They've written a book about?
They've written a book about me, and on top of that, they took Mona Lisa and gave her a mustache.
Ah, yes.
On a postcard.
Yes. The found art. That was Marcel Duchamp.
Yes, and
L-H-O-O-Q.
put a mustache on my work.
Well, it's funny because, it means she has a hot tushy when you say L-H-O-O-Q in French. You got to admit, it's funny.
I will not have my work be made fun of in such ways. It is a serious piece.
It is so serious that in Paris, I hear it's in the Louvre. And it's behind a very, very thick piece of glass. And that there's tourists all over the place taking pictures of it.
Exactly. How dare they?
You know what? I've heard that the tourists are so thick that, if you try to take a picture of the Mona Lisa, you get a picture of the tourists instead.
Oh, goodness. I do not want my work to be displayed like this. How dare they?
Yes. See, you just have to paint grand things like ceilings where people just, get crooks in the neck looking at that and go, oh, wow, there's Adam touching God.
And after this, I need a chiropractor.
Yes. But people travel all over. They go
Well, at least
there
mine
to
can
see
be
it.
looked at without getting a pain in the neck.
Yes.
What a pain in the neck your artwork is to look at.
You really need like a telescope, I think, to truly see the detail from down below.
Telescopes.
Well, Truce, it's been very nice talking with you, but I will say I am the better man because
someone actually wrote a biography about me in my lifetime. This is before I died. Can you say the same, that somebody wrote a book about you while you were still living?
Well, at least they sell the Vitruvian Man on t-shirts on Amazon. You can buy anything at Amazon. Amazon Prime, they can ship it to you in the next day.
You can get anything on Amazon.